All right, for those of you visiting with us, you might wonder, why is there one guy up here so much? I am not normally up here this much. Our regular song leader also works in IT at Donovan's, and if you've been watching the news, you know that Donovan's lost power on Thursday night, I believe it was, and they've been scrambling ever since to bring power back to that place. So he's been working 12-hour days. He's working right now, actually. And normally, I would ask Ignacio to lead songs in Perry's place, but when Ignacio does that, then he doesn't go and do his street ministry because he loses his voice as street ministry. And so I thought, I want Ignacio to be able to go and do his street ministry. I want Perry to go and fix the prison all by himself, a lone hero. So I decided I will lead songs today. And you should be grateful because after I teach an hour-long class and then sing through a bunch of songs, I had feared that my voice would be drifting. And so I actually had a sermon that was in 2 parts, but you're only going to get 1 part. So you should be grateful for that. Choose to be thankful. Choose to be grateful. Actually, that goes into the sermon we're going to talk about. Obviously, it's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is on Thursday. If you come on Wednesday nights, we will not be meeting this Wednesday night. But we have Thanksgiving this Thursday, and this is that time of year when everyone kind of starts to focus on what you should be grateful for. And I think choosing, if you look at the image behind you, it shows a picture of a person picking out an emotion. Now, by these, I don't actually mean emotions. Being grateful is not an emotional response. You don't actually get to pick your emotions. Sometimes your mental health state might not allow you to pick how you feel. And that's okay because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm talking about when you wake up in the morning and you have a decision, regardless of your state, you have a decision whether or not you can be grateful or pessimistic. Where you can be thankful for things, or you can kind of focus on the negative side of things. And I think as human beings, we tend to focus more on the negative. We just do. How many of you use social media? All 4 of you. This is fantastic. Normally what you'll see, the posts that have the most comments, the most likes, are usually ones that are not super positive. They're usually ones that are controversial. Someone says something and you're like, oh, I don't like how. Then you get on your phone and you become a genius and things you've never thought of before, and you begin to type, right? And you put your thoughts out there, like, I told him. Ha ha, yeah, got it. And then we spend the rest of the day thinking about what an idiot that person was for thinking what they thought. We tend to see things through a negative light, but Scripture, as we read in Psalm 107, Scripture encourages us not to forget about the bad, not to forget about the storms of life, not to forget about the bad things that have happened to us or the things that are happening to us right now. But to remember that through that bad time, God is with you. And God is caring for you. And just because you're going through a storm doesn't mean that God doesn't love you. And God is caring for you. And to give Him thanks for His steadfast love, for the wonders He has done for mankind, if you remember how we read through 107. It's a choice that we make. It's a choice that we get to decide what direction we'll go, how we'll approach life. My daughter is in a college course. It's called Introduction to Joy, or Intro to Joy, and they have this phrase, I think it's a Rob Bell phrase, how do you show up in the world? How do you decide to show up when you wake up? What kind of person do you decide to be? Because you have a choice. And it is a mental exercise to practice gratitude. It doesn't always come naturally. Chris came up with some examples where maybe it comes natural. Where you say, oh, thank you for my money back, or thank you for purchasing for me, or whatever it is. And those are social things that we do, social interactions. But it doesn't mean we've chosen thankfulness as our way of life. It doesn't mean we went left when we should have went right. It means that that's just kind of how life goes. Kind of like asking, how are you? And they begin to tell you, but you're not really listening because you're just hoping to hear the word good. How are you? You have a choice. And I was thinking about the story of Pharaoh. Thinking about the story of Pharaoh and how he approaches life. I don't know if you've ever thought of Pharaoh this way. We tend to think more about Pharaoh later on in the story when the plagues are happening and he hardens his heart and he hardens his heart, and then later on God hardened his heart and through all 10 plagues and the crop. That's Pharaoh to us, but Pharaoh has a little bit, not much, he has a little bit of a backstory. He has a little bit of a backstory that I find really, really interesting. It's from Exodus chapter 1. Now, part of this is understanding that everything I'm about to read, this new king, this Pharaoh, doesn't know anything about it. It says, these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each with his household. Now you remember, Jacob showed up, all of Israel shows up in Egypt because of a famine. There's no water, there's no food, and they flee to Egypt because Egypt is resourceful. They have a lot of resources, and they have a lot to give to the people. And so they show up, and they're there, and they're being fed. Remember Joseph, the story of Joseph, and how Joseph rises to leadership. It's a whole story. We don't have time to summarize it now. He is in the pit, he rises to the top, and he saves all of Egypt. And as the story goes, he actually saves pretty much everyone. These are the names of the household of Jacob, all those people that showed up in Egypt trying to escape the famine. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All the descendants of Jacob were 70 persons. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the people of Israel were fruitful and increased greatly. They're fulfilling the promise of creation, right? Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the land. Yeah, that's what they're doing, but they're in Egypt. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, and I want to pause there. I want to pause right there and just think about this. So we get this new king. We don't know how he's a new king. Maybe there was a turnover, just a gradual ascension from one Pharaoh to the next, and it was peaceful. Probably this is a new Pharaoh from a new place that's overtaken, and he's now ruling the land that once wasn't his. And he doesn't know who Joseph is. Now, this is an important detail. He does not know who Joseph is. He doesn't know what Joseph did. And because he doesn't know what Joseph did, he doesn't know who all these Israelites are and why they're all here. All he knows is they don't fit in. They're not Egyptian. And he has a choice. He has a choice of what he's going to do next, just like you and just like me. And he said to his people, behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. So he responds with negativity, right? He responds with the negative, pessimistic, dark attitude toward the situation he now finds himself in. He sees a people group and says, look how many they are. If he had known his history, he would know that those are the very people that saved Egypt. If he had taken the time to know his history, he would know that the people he is about to oppress and kill were the very people who made Egypt possible. That's why they're there, because one of their own, Joseph, saved the land. But he doesn't know his history. He doesn't know his past. He only sees a problem. And that is true for us as well. When we don't think about our past, we often forget the provision of God in our life. Today and tomorrow, all we see is the problem in front of us. We don't remember what God has done for us in the past. And how we even got to this place. Pharaoh doesn't know what God did. Not only does he not know Joseph, he does not know the God of Joseph. He doesn't know about the dreams of the 7 fat calves and the 7 skinny calves, or the dreams of the sheaves. He doesn't know any of this. And so instead of looking at this people group and saying, I am so grateful they are here, because if ever trouble comes again, the God of this people will save us. The God of this people will save us from famine and sword. He doesn't think that way. He only sees a lot of people, and he doesn't like them. That's what he sees. And so he makes his choice. He says, they're too many and they're too mighty for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them. This word shrewdly is used in the Joseph story. It's also used of the snake in the garden. The Pharaoh actually becomes like a new snake in this new garden paradise. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply even more. And if war breaks out, they join our enemies. If you have a lot of people in your land who have saved you and their God has saved you, and if you know your history, you will not see them as an enemy. You will see them as a friend. And you will say, I'm so glad they're here. Could you imagine if war breaks out and some warring nation comes against us? Look at all these people here to help us, here to protect us. That is not what he does. There are things happening in your life and my life that you can look at and say, that is awful, this is horrible, this is such a big problem. We got to do something about this problem, when it's not actually a problem at all. It's something that is good. The problem is our perspective. Our problem is how we chose to show up in the world, how we chose to be as a human being. And we walk around and everything's a problem. Everything's a problem. So let us deal shrewdly with them. Just imagine if war breaks out and they join forces with the enemy, we're toast. So how do you get rid of a lot of people? Well, there's only one way to do it, and it's not pretty. Well, there's two ways to do it, but neither of them are pretty. Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with heavy burdens. They made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and all kinds of work of the field. In all their work, they ruthlessly made them work as slaves. So plan number one was, let's oppress them, let's zap them of all their energy. They'll stop reproducing, and we'll be able to thin out this Israelite herd. Going to make them work in the field. But remember, the field is cursed with thorns and thistles. It's hard to work in the field. And the last time we saw people building with bricks and mortar, that was the Tower of Babel. That didn't go so well either. So Pharaoh is trying to curse this people and make them work as slaves. But always remember, everything we read, remember, he didn't have to do it that way. That's not how it had to be. It's how he decided for it to be. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, when you serve as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it's a daughter, she shall live. If we get rid of all the boys, it's like two birds, one stone. No more fighting men, no more pregnancies. It's a win-win. We're going to thin out this Israelite herd. So if it's a boy, kill it. My clicker, there it is. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. That's his story, but what if? Can you imagine if Pharaoh had showed up and said, I like these people. They're a great resource for us. This is no trouble at all. I am glad they're here. We can use this. We can become a mightier nation with their help and with their God's help. Just imagine the what if of Pharaoh. Now, we read Pharaoh's story, and sometimes we don't even think about Pharaoh having a choice. We just read it like, yep, Pharaoh's a nasty guy. Did nasty stuff, Pharaoh did. And that's it. But he had a choice. Things did not have to go the way that they went. But he decided to show up with fear and negativity and pessimism instead of showing up and choosing to be grateful that God had placed a blessed people in his land? What if? You see, because he had a choice. He had a choice, and he made his choice. You also have a choice. You have a choice. I have a choice. How am I going to react to things that I could easily interpret as bad? When I was in sales, I was selling to San Diego Community College District, and I was at their library trying to sell furniture to their library. And the director of the library was funny. He was just the kind of guy that would drive me bananas. I'm talking to him, and someone comes up to him with a problem, right? Sir, we have a problem. And they start to go into the problem. He's like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, the problem is this, and the problem is that. He goes, stop right there. Change the word problem. The girl goes, okay, our opportunity to succeed is this. He would not let them say there was a problem. Sir, we have a problem. No, you don't. You have an opportunity to succeed. He wouldn't let her complain. He wanted her to change her perspective. Because the situation is what it is. The situation doesn't change based on how you react to it. What happens afterwards might change based on how you react to it. But the initial struggle or problem, it's there. And you have a choice. You have a choice of how you're going to show up when there are problems, when there are struggles. Because some of us, it's harder to be grateful. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, some of us have gone through the ringer in life. And life is tough, and life is hard. We've had a lot of bad things happen to us. How you react to those bad things doesn't change those bad things. It only changes the direction you're going to go. It doesn't change where you've been. It only changes where you're going. Choose gratitude. Choose to be thankful. It's a choice. It's a lot like love, actually. Sometimes we think love is a feeling. Oh, I have to feel a certain way to love. No, you don't. Love is an action. So is being grateful. So is forgiving. Those are all actions. They're not feelings. Remember I said earlier, this isn't about choosing a feeling. You can't really choose a feeling. Something happens and you feel the way you feel. But you can change how you behave, how you react. You can choose to be grateful. A friend of mine put a list together of all the health benefits of being grateful. It helps your blood pressure. It helps you sleep better. It helps with tension headaches. The practice of gratitude, where you really sit down and you focus on what it is you really have. What it is you really have in your life that you can be really, really grateful for. I am grateful that I wake up and I'm in a bed. I'm grateful that I have neck problems. My neck's always stiff, and if you watch me when I'm not preaching, you'll see me always just doing weird contortions to try and stretch my back and my neck. I have the choice. I can actually go somewhere and buy a pillow, to try and help me with that. When it's at night and I'm hungry and I shouldn't eat, but I really want to eat something, I can open up a cabinet and there's food in there. Or open the fridge and there's food right there. I have an awesome family. My kids love me more than they say. I know it. Deep down, I know it. This is a great congregation. This is a great congregation of people. Just look around. You have so much to be grateful for. If you want to learn about another culture, background, language, it's all right here. We're small but mighty. There were only 70 that showed up in Egypt. But they were fruitful and they multiplied. This is a blessed congregation. There's a lot of great people here. People that will bend over backwards to help you because they love you. And so it's easy when something difficult happens to start to fret about it and get anxious about it, or start to perceive it in a certain way. But it's important to remember the blessings that you have and count those blessings. And remember how good your life is. And remember all the people God has put into your life that love you so much. When I pray with my kids at night, this is something we almost always say in our prayer. God, thank you for putting people in our lives that love us and care about us. Our church, our family, teachers, friends. Thank you. Thank you for making my life as good as it is. Because gratitude takes effort. And it won't always be natural. But it's worth the effort. And it is your choice. Is this my last slide, Tracy? All right. I couldn't remember because, again, this was a 2-part sermon. I was like, wait a minute, is this the last one? Feels like the last one. Be grateful. And not just at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's like the right time to talk about this, right? But not just at Thanksgiving. You're blessed all year long. All year long. Even when it feels like you're not. You are. Because when hard times come, you're not alone. You're not alone. We're here. We want to help. We want to love. In God's family, you're never alone, and you always have something to be grateful for. So make your choice. We're going to sing one more song. I almost forgot. I'm the song leader too.